So if you say that these ancient people would say that in contrast to what we seem to be there has to be something which doesn't change, doesn't move, which is able to observe the changing and the moving. Otherwise, how would you register that something moves or changes? This is only the theory of relativity also. See? So that something remains static in relation to its moving counterpart. Now, if you say that, then you are then acknowledging something that is unchanging, something that is existing, not seeming to exist, but acknowledging that there's an apparitional world. Now,
what do you mean at the start of that, though? When you say that you're assuming there is something that is unchanging and unmoving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's an assumption. Why do you,
no, it's not an assumption.
Build that on?
Well, because if something moves, how is it registered?
I'm not sure what you think. Look, forget about moving for a second. You're saying there is something unmoving.
No. Let's deal with it. A river moves.
Yeah.
There's a solid bank behind, and there's an entity.
Well, it's not a solid bank. There's what appears to us to be a solid bank.
I mean, it's only a metaphor.
Okay.
All metaphors are flawed.
Okay. But no, let's go off the metaphor moving. Let's go back to the something unchanging, unmoving. Where are you getting that from?
Well, let's go back to the river. I must be non-flowing to observe the flowing.
No, that's not true at all. You could be moving and observe the flowing relative to your motion if the flowing is different to your movement.
Exactly, absolutely. So there's a relativity where I'm relatively static in comparison to that. Now, supposing...
Hang on. You're jumping off things there. What we're saying, is there something unmoving? Your evidence for there being something unmoving was that if the river is moving and I'm stationary, then it's moving relative to me. I said, no, you are actually moving. Both things are moving. So now, where is the unmoving thing in this?
Well, you see, in the original analysis that I did, which started off with various fields that are observed, I started with the eyes. The eyes are moving relative to what they're seeing. But as you go back and inward, then that relativity of perception becomes less and less, and the multiple fields become more and more. So that ultimately you'll come to a position where nothing moves.
No, you don't. The final part of that doesn't follow from the earlier parts.
Why not?
Well, you have to justify why it does. I mean, because whatever it is, if you're talking about the eye, and I presume you mean the physical eye and the eye in terms of the mind.
Yeah.
Well, you and all the eyes, they're moving around the universe at great speeds all the time.
Right.
Well, there's no point just saying right. I mean, it is moving.
Well, there's no point in saying right, because you haven't said anything profound in that. You see, when things are changing and moving in the physical world, we understand that. What we don't understand is there a single datum that will register it beyond which you cannot go? Now that's a question. So I put it in.
But how do you get from that question to that there is something unmoving, unchanging, which is existence and consciousness and bliss?
Because if it is,
why isn't it hatred?
Well, why would it be changing? If it's changing,
no. Why do you bring in bliss instead of hatred?
Oh, okay.
You know, they simply random subjective preferences.
No, they're not. But we only have several minutes to present an intricate topic. Why we said bliss is because there are no two. It's undivided. If something is undivided, then we don't have any conflict. For example, in a dreamless sleep, we experience no division, and we register there's a peace.
But conflict only exists in the context of consciousness, in the context of conscious beings. If there was no consciousness, then there would be no morality. There would be no conflict. Well, there would just be things.
Well, you're using a word which can mean various things. So I think we need to find out what is consciousness. Consciousness.
We won't do that tonight.
No, we don't.
But
there's a difference between consciousness, and if you're confusing the two terms.
Oh, so, and which is the God, conscious or consciousness?
Consciousness
is the God.
Would be equivalent to God, yes.
Okay, consciousness is God. But it's consciousness and also bliss.
Yes, bliss because it's undivided.
Okay, now what happens to consciousness that is divided? Where does that fit in the overall scheme?
Then that's in the apparitional world of transformational causation.
Okay, and is consciousness plus bliss in the same world?
Yes, because it's undivided.
So there are two things then, there's consciousness plus bliss and there's consciousness plus hatred.
Then
there's also consciousness plus any other series
no pluses, no pluses. These are three different aspects of one entity. With the apology, we can't fully describe it.
Okay, okay. So there are different aspects of the... Can we just have a few minutes on this, because I think this is kind of useful. So now we've got that there are multiple aspects of the same entity. So why out of those multiple aspects...
Seemingly.
Seemingly. Why out of those seemingly multiple aspects do you choose bliss as the one to describe it? Why don't you say it's consciousness plus multiple aspects, one of which is bliss? Why do you choose bliss? And I suspect, just follow the train of thought, because I suspect this is one of the things that is now coming closer to what I do experience with other religious discussions, is that faith seems to me, religious faith seems to me to be not only, it's not just that you're believing things disproportionately to the available evidence, but it's that you're believing things because you want to believe them. And it's nicer to believe that there's consciousness and bliss than it is to believe that there's consciousness and hatred. Because if God is consciousness and hatred, then you know, that doesn't sound very nice.
I think you're completely misunderstanding the whole thing. I'm
following the logic of what you're saying.
You see, if there's a dividedness, then there's a second entity to hate. I'm not saying that there is happiness with something or something objective in relation to happiness or anything like that. I'm saying that these are essences. In other words, existence is itself. It's not something that is objectively existent. Consciousness is something that is...
Well, it exists... Well,
that is objectively so.
Okay, to take a step back from that...
And bliss is because there's an undividedness.
Okay. Well, let's take those one at a time. Existence is
more than undividedness, but I'll go into that.
Again, you're making assumptions there. Existence, philosophically, is arguably a property of things rather than an entity in itself.
Well,
secondly,
not so in this case.
Not so in this case. In your opinion,
no. Something. If something is moving and changing, and something in relation to it is unchanging, and you have an observer for that, you will ultimately go to a datum where there is only existence.
Yeah, but you have a lot of ifs. A lot of ifs along the way of that route, and the first if, which I would dispute, is if there is something that is unchanging.
No, not at all. No, there's no if.
You included an if when you were saying, you said if there is something that's unchanging.
Okay.
So that's the stage beyond which I can't follow you until I'm satisfied that part is true. And even if we go, and I think because I don't think we're going to resolve a lot of these issues. So I'd like to just move on to the next part of it, which is even if we assume for the sake of this discussion that we do go that as far as you have gone, there's still no bridge that I can see between that and the caste system, the idea that people are reincarnated, all of the beliefs that we're describing.
If I can say, if that's a subject matter, then we could. But that wasn't the subject matter.
It is to the extent that for the existence of God to mean anything, in the context of I mean, you're a member of a religion, okay? In the context of the real world as we perceive it to be, for the existence of God to mean something other than the existence of a bottle of water, that there are moral and lifestyle implications of it, and that's where even if you accept that this abstract entity, which is less problematic than some of the theistic ideas of a being that intervenes on a daily basis for the benefit of human beings on planet Earth. It's less problematic than that, but it is still just a nice thing to talk about, you know, to have a few drinks at night and chat about, and wouldn't it be interesting if? But you're using it as the basis of your worldview.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The reason why it's workable, because I'm glad you brought that, because you mentioned this also in your rebuttal. You're talking about what's the connection, and I understand what you're saying. See, the connection is this: if I but if I have evidence, and the evidence is based from reliable testimony, ultimately my personal experience and rationale, if this evidence says that this world, and from modern science as well, that this world is merely apparitional, there's no substantial aspect to it, then I will deal with the world in a different way. I won't assume it's permanent. I won't assume that there's a necessity for fear. And this is the goal of Vedanta, and I'm glad we got to this point. The goal of the Vedanta is fearlessness. It's not heaven. Heaven has no relation to this. The heaven is, if there is a heaven in terms of the theology of it, it's a very poor reward. It's a kind of return ticket that is not desirable. So the goal is freedom, and every atom of the universe and everything is moving or wants to move toward this freedom, and expresses itself in aspects like social freedom, freedom of gender, freedom of political views, and so on and so forth, all of these kinds of things.
Are you attributing consciousness and desires to atoms?
No, I'm not.
Because you just said that.
Well, I said what?
You just said that.
What?
You said that. Yes, no, you said every atom has a desire for freedom.
Every atom seems to want to have its own freedom.
Yeah, but we know that. Well, insofar as we can know anything, we know that atoms don't desire anything.
Well, atoms are under the influence of a desire, and I'll frame it in poetic language, admittedly, to expand and go on infinitely. If it wasn't for that, this force of electrical energy wouldn't be there. So, as I see it, the three great energies in the universe, the gravitational energy, electrical energy, and inertia. Now, if you go in a car, you want to stop and you want to go. These are the two things. And there's no reason why it should be. And there's no reason why there should be gravity, unless, if you take this absolute and see that through the framework of time and space, how will it look as an apparition, then there must be some signatures of it. And it strikes me that gravity is a signature of wanting to be undivided, and electrical energy is a desire, as it were, to be infinite, stretch out infinitely, and inertia is a desire for unchanging, something unchanging. And so, again, if you postulate, even, that there's an unchanging and undivided and infinite entity, you would see these signatures in the world if it was apparitional.
Okay. Can I just briefly apply that?
No, that's
1 minute.
What we're going to do is we're going to open up to questions from that. When you're done, you're
okay. When you're done,
open up questions.
So if I could just finish off one thing there, because you're looking for a connection.
Yeah.
So how does it affect a worldview? It affects a worldview by virtue of this, that this revelation is only available to the pure mind. It is purely a psychological process. So how will it affect my moral position and so on and so forth? Then I will take every measure to do things in a non-egoistic way, in a selfless way, more than mere morals and ethics. I will take a disciplined measure as recommended. The methodology, fourfold methodology is there depending on your propensity. And with that clarification, purification of the mind, I will discover this reality is the way. Now, there's evidence for it, but we leave it there for the time being.
Right, well, here's the difficulty with that, and this is the difficulty with faith-based discussions of any sort, is once you free yourself, as you have done in this conversation, from the restriction that I place upon myself of proportioning what I say I believe to the available evidence, you can say anything. You know, here's what I can say based on what you're saying. I can say, okay, God is an entity which is non-existence and hatred, and that I have that from my direct experience. a direct experience that God is non-existence and hatred.
Then I
know you would, and I would dispute yours.
Yeah, can I tell you why I would dispute that?
Well, you can tell me after I finish, because you might believe the full thing. Okay, this is my reliable testimony, and I believe that every atom in the universe has a desire to be destructive and to decay, and I believe that causes us to to want to be egotistical and hurtful, and that's based on my direct experience of God being non-existence and hatred. Now, there is as much evidence to support what I've just said as there is to support what you've just said.
What can I ask you?
Other than it is what you're saying is what you want to believe.
Yeah. If I could just briefly respond.
Just nothing brief about this conversation.
Well, this is the atoms going on for eternity.
You see, the problem is that you're presenting a hypothetical thing.
As are you.
No, I'm not. And let's test it out.